everybody, my gray sheet people. Good to see everybody, people I've known for a long time and people that are new. It's just always so incredible to be on a meeting. No matter what I'm feeling, no matter what I'm doing, when I get on a meeting, I just typically feel better when I get off. So thank you so much for Kim for asking me. It really is good to see people who've known me from the when I first moved back to Portland in 2009. Um, I I'll just sort of put out there that my mother passed. I'll do my mantra. My mother passed a couple weeks ago, so I'm a little off, a little tired, mind's a little scattered. But I am a compulsive eater. I'm an anorexic and bulimic. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. Commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat in between meals. Abstinence and my higher power are the most important things in my life. And all of this you have taught me. Everything that I know about compulsive eating is from my fellow gray sheeters and the literature. Um, and it has been a wonderful journey. I was thinking I came into Gray Sheet about 15 years ago. I was in Germany, and for 5 years I struggled. And then I came back to the States when I had about 3 years in the program, and my program really took off. And so I hopefully, by the grace of God and your help, I'll celebrate 10 years on the 13th of February. And I am so grateful. I really, really, really am grateful. I was thinking before I got on that, I am a different person. I am totally a different person compared to when I came in recovery, even before Gray Sheet. And the great news is that I get to grow, I get to change, I get to aim for things, I get to have goals. So I'm learning to accept myself exactly as I am, and I get to grow. I sometimes don't talk enough about my food, I think. The 3 years I was in Germany, used just AA. There was one other gray sheeter and occasionally another. And so, I was told to go to AA and listen like it's the food, but it wasn't the same thing. But I got up to a year of abstinent in Germany. I came to the States. I was able to get another year, the strange mental blank spots, and then was able to start my current abstinence. I My life is totally different today than it was when I came in. I really like having a quiet life. I just want to say this so I don't forget to talk about the gifts. My life is very quiet. I like staying home a lot more. I like doing things with people one-on-one a lot more. I show up for my relationships. I make mistakes and have problems and situations every day. But I just don't eat no matter what. And somehow during this time, the past year with the corona, not to get into specifics, it has really helped me with gratitude. And it's really helped me with actually having a spiritual practice, which I used to just be on the go. So, yes, I love my food. I don't talk about it enough. I was an anorexic. I never went grocery shopping. Even when I was a stay-at-home mom for 5 years, and 3 of those were gray sheet, I would go grocery shopping occasionally. But then, I had kids and I would go grocery shopping and they were like fat. I mean, basically overweight by the time they were like in second and fifth grade, because I was eating bizarrely. I was living on little things that come in little bars. Um, and I was going into the grocery store like in agony, like to buy this for my kids or that for my kids, or this for me and that for me. And I would literally like leave the grocery store because it was just, I couldn't take it. And I'm so glad now that I know how to cook. I'm a slow learner, but I can roast, I can air fry, I can crock pot, I can, it's pretty amazing. And it is something I'd use just like I've been taught, like right now with my mother's situation. I am just focusing on the food, weighing and measuring. I'm looking, I put my dinner in before I got in the meeting. I can plan things. My first 3 years in Gray Sheet, I was working with the military overseas and small children. Um, so it was pretty crazy. So I can make things for my sons that are healthy, but it's still not like who I am. And I have used the steps, used them over and over. I have a son who is now 23 and morbidly obese, and he lives with me. And because of the steps, I'm giving him the dignity of living his own life. I haven't for several years commented anything about his food. Um, it's been extremely painful, and I still deal with it. It's still hard to see him, but I know I didn't come from big numbers, but I know you guys a lot came from big numbers, and I know there's a solution. And you tell me, Karen, weigh and measure your food. That's the best thing for him to see. Um, so yes, I'm very much looking forward to dinner. I'm very lucky now that I'm retired that I have time to do things with my food. I was sharing on the meeting the other day is sometimes I can make a meal in 5 minutes. I've got 5 minute meals. And sometimes I can make a whole like hour meal. And so I'm blessed to be able to be at home and to do that. Um, and I do love cooking. I totally love my food better than anybody else's, the restaurants, anybody else's cooking. I actually don't go out to fancy restaurants, even when I'm in Europe much, because I just love my own food. Um, so I grew up in a home where um, I didn't learn a lot of this until after Gray Sheet that my mom was a sugar addict. Um, there were 8 of us children, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom most of the time. And there were always baked goods, always baked goods. And she actually put a fairly healthy meal on the table almost every night. And so I, I have I have 6 living siblings, and 2 of them had weight problems. So I know, I guess I used to think when I was new in Gray Sheet that it was my childhood that, caused me to overeat and binge and purge and do the anorexia. And that is actually not, it's partially true, but it's my physical allergy. I have siblings that do not have the physical allergy. They might overeat once in a while or sit at the table and eat part of a meal. So what is totally different for me is that I have that allergy to sugars, grains, and carbs. When I put it into my mouth, I trigger this physical allergy that says more. And mine started early. I think I was 12 when I started babysitting, and I started stealing food just all the time. I once told a sponsor that I took food from the house, and she said to me, "No, you didn't, Karen. You stole food. You were a thief." And that's kind of reflective of what I would do with my life. I would like rationalize and soften, and I need a sponsor for that. So I remember I came around the kitchen. I was staying with my mother a few years into abstinence, and it was at night, and I went to get a drink of water, and the kitchen was dark. And as I came around the corner, my mother had the kitchen door open, and she had a plastic thing of pretty much pure sugar. And she was like this, just guzzling it and guzzling it. And, it's like, oh my gosh, she must have done a lot of secret sugar eating. And she was obsessed with her weight. She was obsessed with her look. She also had a master's degree. She also taught at the university for a while. She, conducted plays in the community. She was a, sugar addict. So, all right. So yeah, babysitting. I decided in ninth grade that I was fat. I was actually a pretty little cheerleader, but this was at the height of my father's drinking. So I grew up in the family disease of alcoholism and food addiction. And so when I was finishing ninth grade, he had retired, and now he was home all the time, and he was violent and aggressive. And I don't know why I decided it's the disease, maybe from my mom, like, okay, I need to lose 30 pounds. And
And that's 10.
okay, thanks, Nan. That's about 10 more than, I mean, 30 less than I am now. So it was bad. One of the difficult things is that nobody noticed. Nobody, not my mother, my father, my siblings, commented on what had happened to me. I'm not a pure anorexic. I was good at academics. My parents focused that. I was good at sports. I think I just tried everything to be good at everything to be noticed. I mean, I did Girl Scouts and community service and church and, clubs at the high school. But I spent the summer before my 10th grade swimming and just eating that one fruit, and I lost that 30 pounds. Um, and during my high school years, what happened after that was I wasn't a pure anorexic, I don't think. Well, periodically. All I remember is coming home in the evening after all my things. My dad might be home angry and yelling, or he would go out. But it was just, I grew up with the constant fear. There was some physical violence. On the outside, all my brothers and sisters and I looked really good. And I just know that I started watching movies in the evening with my older sister, and we had a big family freezer, and my brother worked at the airport, and he had giant black bags. He would clear everything off of the airplane when it was whatever. And so I just remember sitting there, and there was the freezer, going over, getting a handful and coming back and sitting down and eating them. And for a while wasn't a big deal. I was gaining weight until it started to be like, I'm not watching TV tonight. I'm not going to eat those things. I'm not going down to the basement, and for 3 years I did the same thing. And I was very isolated because I had no friends. I didn't go to any parties. Nobody came to our house. So people skills were just not great, not great. So I was definitely powerless. And just jump forward. I spent 5 years as a bulimic in my second year of college, and then for 5 years after that. Again, my life was very narrow, very narrow. I started compulsive exercising. I studied, and I ate, and I purged, and I was involved with the Catholic Student Center. I was horribly humiliated at my bulimia. Um, and I'm just like a lot of food addicts. I had to hide. I had to plan things, if I could eat this or I could not eat this, or I it did start to be where I felt like I was getting hopeless. And the year after I graduated from college, I went to another education program, and I had my first time where I felt suicidal. I can even picture myself in the fetal position in my bed. And so I had gotten a car. I never had a car before then. And so my bulimia continued. My compulsive exercising was bad. Again, all I did was study. And with the car, now I could buy a lot of food every day, almost every day. I would leave the school. I wouldn't have eaten much, the whole restricting, and I'm going to be good, and I'm not going to go anywhere, and I'm not going to eat anything. And my car would go into the fast food place literally beyond my control. I'm sure sometimes I was able to go home, but I'd go to the fast food place, I'd come home, I'd study around midnight or so, I'd purge, and then I'd drive back out to the convenience store. I mean, you know the deal. Come back home, study more, purge. So hopeless at that time. I got engaged to be married to my husband, and I was able to tell him the truth. And he actually responded in a compassionate way. And I got to see a therapist who was an eating disorder specialist. And I saw her on and off for about a year. And she was able to help me really stop the bulimia, basically. Although I continued over the next several years to still have that.
That's 15, Karen.
Okay. So I got, yeah, this kind of went on, and I was able to stop the bulimia, and of course, just substitute compulsive exercising. I was saying the other day, my husband's wonderful. We married when we were 23. We would call each other soulmate. Nobody has a relationship like ours. And then within 3 years, I was like looking at other guys. I even told my husband he was boring. And my husband is fascinating. He is, he's just so fascinating. And I was the boring one. And so I got sober. We went to Germany. I had a couple kids, and I got sober 20 years ago after being in AA for a couple of years. And 10 of my years of sobriety were in Germany. And my father was sober. He got sober and was sober at the time when I went. And he turned into this, like, from this raging person to this incredible grandpa. I knew the power of AA. I knew some of the science. I just didn't think I was one. But eventually, certain things happened, and I was almost going to lose my career in the military. So, it helped me to reach a bottom. I was it's like Gray Sheet, basically. Within about a year of AA, I felt better. I'm kind of like a scientific approach. And as this whole AA thing was going on, I'm like, well, how do I feel? And I feel good after I go to a meeting. They're telling me this behavior is alcoholic. Really? And when I got into Gray Sheet, a woman came from the States to our area there, and I was into the compulsive exercising, anorexia, little bars were my whole diet. My older son, who is now in 6th grade, said to me one morning, we went out for breakfast, just the three of us, my two sons, and I pulled it out, and they had their meals, and he said, Mom, that's disgusting. Why don't you eat real food? Um, those things kind of touch you. And this Gray Sheeter came into my meeting, to our women's meeting, which was only about 8 to 10 people, because everybody, there was no there weren't enough people to have a AA group or whatever. One time a woman came who was anorexic, and I thought, I didn't know anorexics went to compulsive eating. I just didn't even know anything about food programs. Um, when I was younger, I read like the Janine Roth books and other books about pay attention to your apostat. Like, oh my God, I'm so crazy because I tried it. It didn't work. So then I read her second book, and I'm like, you know, you have to laugh about it, but it was painful at the time. In my marriage, when I got into my food addiction bad in Germany, my husband's and I marriage fell apart. And what happened was, when I came into Gray Sheet, which was rough in the beginning, but my food obsession, it went away in like 3 to 6 months. And I did have a higher power in my life. I did have a God. I had my AA program. I had a lot of people around me. And I really think that helped me with that. Of course, I still have food cravings now, but never like it was then, which is like, the biggest gift. Um, this woman came in, and I was needing a new AA sponsor, and I said hi to her, and she just had this kind of like the way I could only think of it was, she really took her seat. Like when she sat down, she was like solid. And we went around introducing ourselves, and she said, I'm so and so, I'm an alcoholic and I'm a compulsive eater. And then she gave the whole crazy mantra. I was like, what the hell was that? Oh my God. I don't care. I'm going to ask her to be my AA sponsor. And she was beautiful with me. I was just so, self-will and riot, but she started me. Things that were helpful there were, I think I only went to a restaurant once with her. She didn't like to eat out, but she organized retreats. So she would invite GreySheeters up from the Balkans and from Austria, England,
That's
and
20, Karen.
okay. Um, I guess what I want to say is that sponsors in the program have been so generous to me. Without you, without the help, it's I absolutely cannot do this alone. And when I was, even in the last few years, I've taken for granted all the people that have helped me in Gray Sheet. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.